Welcome to the podcast editing and support show. My name is Dave. Are you ready? Are you ready? Let's go. We're going to start the episode right now. Happy to have you here. Let's do this. Hey, welcome back to the podcast editing and support show. It's Dave. Yes, glad to be here with you. I'm back from a podcast conference out in Calgary, Alberta, Canada, and got some reflections for you on what I saw, what I experienced, what I learned, all those great things, all combined into one. And I just wanted to touch base with you and see how you are doing and how your podcast is going and your podcast business, how you're helping editors in your space and helping podcasters as a podcast editor. Hope you're doing well. Hope you're getting lots of business, lots of inquiries, yes, and lots of curiosity around what you do and how you serve the podcast industry. Hope things are going well. So we went out to Pod Summit. My wife, Jennifer, and I, we took a flight from Hamilton to Calgary, 4 hours on a plane, flying across this beautiful country, Canada. And first time for both of us to be in Calgary together. And we had a great time. Really fun to do a little day trip up to Banff as well and go see all the beautiful mountains. And oh, so gorgeous up there. Very different than the land that we live here in Ontario, very flat, kind of just meh, meh, meh. They're beautiful mountains, just appear out of nowhere. It's like, who put these there? Like, this is great. And we learned a lot going to this conference. So I want to frame my insights around three kind of main key points that I want to kind of touch on. And how you, when you go to an event, whether it's a virtual event online or in person, how you can kind of bring that information home with you and put it into place, put it into practice. It's one thing to go there and live in the moment and meet all these people and hear all these great talks. But the one thing we do need to do is come home and apply it. So that's kind of what I wanted to chat about today. So I'm going to talk about organizing and prioritizing your insights. I want to talk about implementing new strategies that you learn at an event and networking and following up with others. These are the three kind of the main components of what I want to talk about in relation to going to this event in Calgary. So I hope you're ready to stick in. Here we go. So there's three main key points to reflect on when attending a podcast conference. And like I said, we're going to start with organizing and prioritizing your insights. One thing you should do, which I didn't do, it was bring a paper and pen, some kind of notebook, something to take notes in. If you're a digital person, obviously you have your phone, which is great. But I had nothing to write down anything with, and I should have from the beginning. So my issue at the beginning, we had to go find a store and buy a notepad and some pens. They didn't even have them at the event, which would have been nice, but I had to go find one. So that's one thing I would encourage you to do is take notes. Write down stuff that kind of in the moment things that happen. You might be listening to somebody talk about one thing, but it sparks you to think about something else, maybe related to the topic or it's kind of adjacent to what's happening in the moment. That sparks a creative idea. And if you don't have a way of tracking it or capturing in the moment, you're going to miss it. You're not going to remember. When you get back to your home studio or wherever you are, your office, you will not remember these things. I pretty well guarantee it. So capture it in the moment the best you can, but then you also need to review it and somehow take your notes from paper, if you're a paper person like me, and put it into your system so that you have access to the information. One thing to have a bunch of papers strewn across your desk, really hard to search and collaborate and make things talk to each other, putting them into your system, and whatever that looks like for you, Google Docs or whatever, some way to put your information from paper, from your brain and the paper and what you've written into your system will help you to find it, make it more searchable, help you to keep track of it and action it as well. So somehow digitize your notes, get them into your computer so that you have a way to track it. Highlight any key takeaways and actionable insights that kind of came to mind during the event, and then create some kind of prioritized list of action items based on what you heard that you can start implementing and give yourself some timelines, some due dates, so that you have accountability to yourself. That these great things you learned, you're going to put into practice within however many days, weeks, months, so that you know that what you've gained, you're going to put into practice. So somehow organize and prioritize your insights. Really important for you to do. Consider that when you go to your next event. The second one, implement any new strategies that kind of stuck out to you from the event. The beauty of the events is what you come back with, what you learned, how you changed, a different opinion. Maybe you saw something that you liked. Maybe you saw something you did not like. These are all opportunities for you to capture that in the moment and then implement it when you get back. So from everything you learned at this event, again, whether it's an online Zoom meeting thing or an in-person 2-day event, week event, whatever, bring these strategies home with you and choose 2 or 3 of these new techniques or strategies to experiment with in your podcast. Set a timeline for testing these strategies and measure their effectiveness for your show or for your podcast editing business. Then refine your approach to how you do things. So you're at a podcast conference about podcast editing, and they throw out some new tools. Capture the information, get the website, get the information to go get those tools, and then start playing with them. Choose 2 or 3 of these new tools and figure out if they work for your process flow and how you edit, or maybe they don't. And then learn in the process about how you can apply these things to help your business grow. There may be some great insights that come across your plate as you are at these events. Make sure you capture them in the moment and then go home and implement. Put them into practice. The third part, network and follow up. So I took business cards with me. I know I'm old school, white paper cards with my True Media Solutions on it. And there was people leaving business cards out on tables for people to capture and take home with them. From there, I've already have new people connecting with me just from my business card. I didn't get a chance to talk to them in person, but I was there and they grabbed my card, and it's new opportunities. It's new connections that I didn't have had I not been at that event. So when you do have information for people that you meet, make sure that you network and follow up in a timely fashion. You get home, you pull out your business cards you've collected, and you've scribbled notes and phone numbers for a person and an email address or a website. Make sure that you have a plan on how you're going to follow through on this. To bring all that great content, information, and contacts and just dump them in your garbage can under your desk, that does not give you value for the money and time you put into this event. To be there, to pay to go, to travel, you've invested time and money to do this. Make sure you get a return on your investment by following up and networking with these great people you met. The speakers that led classes and all of that. Do something to connect with people. Make sure that you personalize your outreach as well. Explore collaboration opportunities with these people you met. And consider sharing your learnings through content creation, maybe having them on your podcast or having them get together with you on a Zoom meeting and just do a recap together. Do it soon after returning home. Don't let it sit. Don't let it just kind of fade away. We talk about pod fade. What about conference fade? That's when you just forget about all these great people you met and you just move on back to where you were before the conference. If you're not going to action these things you learn at conferences, maybe going to a conference is really not that important to you, and maybe you should do less of it and don't spend so much money, because the best conference results happen in what happens when you get home and what happens with the information that you use when you get there. So make sure you follow up, network with these people. It does reinforce your understanding, and it also benefits others because you reaching out to them also helps them. Maybe they're not as motivated as you are to do this, and you reaching out to them sparks them to also get the best out of the conference possible. So make sure you organize and prioritize your insights from any conference, any classes, any event that you attend to do with podcast editing and support, or as a podcaster yourself, and then implement all the new strategies that you've captured. Pick a few of them, put them into practice, test them, see if they work for you, your process, your workflow, everything that you do, and make the best choice, and then network and follow up with these people. It's very important. So what are some of the insights that I walked away from Pod Summit out in Calgary for me? It wasn't specifically designed for podcast editors. There were some podcast editing discussions that happened. I found that a lot of the content was more focused to professional podcasters in place of newer podcasters. There was a lot of money demonstrated with big name podcasters who have large budgets and big teams. Not a lot of solo podcasters who do this at home on their own as a team of one. There wasn't a lot of that going on. So that was a gap that I know that could serve the audience. There were questions that came from the audience that didn't really get addressed by the speakers. One speaker who was a journalist did a talk, and somebody asked, how often should I release a podcast episode? The host of that session is not even a podcaster. They couldn't answer that question. And I felt bad for the question being asked because they didn't receive any type of answer at all. And it felt like there was a gap there. So a suggestion to a podcast conference, maybe have one of those tables, like Ask Me Anything table, manned by a podcaster at different levels or different stages to answer questions. Somebody trusted that it's going to give people good advice, and people could just come up and ask any question about podcasting. Because I think in a group setting, some of us newer podcasters might feel a little intimidated by people who have $10,000 worth of camera equipment and video podcasting is the only thing they do. You getting up to ask an audio only question feels a little intimidating in that space. So giving people a safe place to ask basic questions might be a good additional thing to add to your conference. I did see a lot of podcasts recorded live that I would never listen to in real life, and I didn't really get the point of it. There was a lot of things done that kind of go against kind of how we podcast in general terms. There's a lot of examples being shown of the way to podcast, and some of it I would challenge, just being that it's not probably the most impactful for the audience. I didn't feel like we as an audience were included in the recording to some degree. Danny Brown from Captivate did in and around podcasting. He did an amazing podcast live recording on stage. That was great because he actually acknowledged the crowd where everybody else kind of treated us like we were just spectators. Danny actually interacted with us, which I really appreciated. He's a great guy, by the way. In and Around Podcasting is the name of that show. Brought to you by Captivate.fm, where we are hosted. Yeah. So that's where our podcast is coming to you from. And they did a great job. There was also a couple people who seemed to be on every panel. And I don't know why they needed to be on every panel. Like, there were a lot of great voices and expertise in the stands, in the seats. And they seemed to default to the same person over and over and over again. Like they were an expert on every topic. So they had to be on every panel. No, I think we could have heard more voices and more insight than having the same person again and again and again. Just a thought. So there's a few of those things. I didn't get a lot of time between sessions to interact with people. We had our lunch breaks. We had an after hours thing. But there wasn't a lot of structured time. Like a speed dating would have been nice, or a get to know me. And the other thing that we brought up in the moment was when people would stand to ask a question in the group setting, they would just ask their question. They wouldn't introduce themselves. They wouldn't get up and say, "Hi, I'm Dave from the Podcast Editing and Support Show. And my question is," like, hearing the names of people's podcasts would have given me the opportunity to go follow your show. And I didn't know who was talking. And I kind of missed the opportunity to connect with new podcasts that I could fall in love with. So a point to you, when you attend a conference and there is an open mic and you have a question and you step up, please tell everyone your name and the name of your show before you ask a question of the group, because it gives us a chance in the listening audience to go, "Oh, hey, Living the Next Chapter, that's a podcast for authors. I'm an author," or "I love books. I want to go check out that show." Whenever you introduce yourself, make sure you tell people about your show. That's really important. So that's some of the insights that I had going there. I know I do have some follow-up work to do with some people, and I'm excited to have people on my show. I talked with Danny Brown from In and Around Podcasting and Captivate.fm. He's actually going to come on one of my shows, which I'm excited about. Been following him for a long time. He's a great podcaster, a great podcast host, and excited to have him come on my How to Podcast series. He's a great guy. So that'll be a fun for me. And we got to have a connection in person, and I was able to chat with him at the event instead of just doing emails and social media likes and posts, to have somebody in front of you that you can talk to, a great experience. So if you've never been to an event, I would say to go to at least one. Pick one that you can afford, one that you can get to where you live. And like I said, it could be a simple pop-up thing in your city. It could be something online, a virtual event. It could be any of those things. But as well, it could be going on a plane, getting on a plane, or getting in your car and traveling to an event and investing some money, putting some money behind it. Now, will I go to every event that comes across my plate? Probably not. It does cost a lot of money. I do have a job. I do have to take holidays to go to these events. I am not working full-time from home. So I only have a few weeks a year to take time off, and pretty well eaten through that, going to this conference and other things. So yeah, you need to do what's right for you. If you can't travel, try to be involved in virtual events. And one of the ones that I do, I use meetup.com, and I do that through my howtopodcast.ca website. I have a show called the How to Podcast series, and I host meetups every week, generally on Saturday mornings, 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And we've been doing this for a while now, and we have a group of around 200 people that have signed up to be part of our meetups. And it's just a great opportunity to get together with podcasters. So if you're a podcast editor and you want to meet podcasters, if you want to be a part of the conversation, you want to learn more about podcasting, you can always come to our podcaster meetup. I'd love to have you jump in, join the conversation. We tell everyone, come to the event, come to our meetups to give. Don't always come to get. Come to give your opinion, share your insight, share your knowledge, share your wisdom, instead of just coming to take all the time. We got to come with a giving spirit to these events, because you're going to get more out of it by giving than going there to get. So you're invited to come. That's our meetups. That's a baby version of a conference, because you get to meet new people that you don't know. They get to meet you, grow your community, and do those things. So whenever you get to go to an event, make sure that you organize and prioritize any insights that you have from the event when you come back to your workflow, back to your home studio, your office. Organize and prioritize all the things that you've captured. As well, implement some new strategies, things that you learned, some new tools, some new techniques. Pick a few, try them, measure them, see if they work for you. If they do, great. If they don't, leave them. Move on to something else. And then lastly, always network and follow up. Don't leave this undone. Don't have conference fade. Don't have pod fade. Don't have conference fade. Don't get all this great information and then never act upon it. Make sure you follow up and do your work behind the scenes. Again, so glad to be back with you. Got great episodes coming up. We were on a little bit of a hiatus for about a month or so, as we had bought a rental property and we were redoing the whole place. 3-bedroom townhouse, all new electrical, plumbing, flooring, paint, everything. Ugh, a lot of work, a lot of money, but we're back. We're back here on the podcast. I'm glad to be back with you. Great episodes coming up here in the future. Thanks for listening. Thank you for being part of the podcast editing and support family. And links, as we mentioned, in the show notes. If you're interested, please follow through. And I'd love to hear from you over at podcasteditingandsupport.com. Thanks for being here, everybody. Take care. We'll talk soon. Thanks for listening to the Podcast Editing and Support Show. Visit us at podcasteditingandsupport.com, podcasteditingandsupport.com. We would love to help you find a great podcast editor, or if you want to hire us, we would love to work with you. Podcasteditingandsupport.com. Catch you on the next episode. Take care.